I hope I'm audible. Am I? Okay, great. So, um, my presentation is a bit general one because from the last, at the end, we have produced some publications from this work. That a list I'll give at the end of the presentation. So it's basically, we talk a lot about many different sectors, about their climatic impacts. But waste management is one of the sector for which not much attention is being paid, although it's a big problem in Pakistan. And one of the reason is that if we look at the past greenhouse gas inventories of Pakistan, then we find that waste sector is reported to produce low emissions. Although our estimations of the climatic impacts are based on the data that was quite old. So I assume with passage of time, this sector, emissions from this sector is increasing. So we must take into account. Okay, can we go to the next one, please? Okay, so if we talk about waste management, there are many different emissions that are being produced from it, because it's not just the waste that is being dumped which produces the emission, but there are many factors that are involved in the transportation of waste that also produce emission. Then there are many practices of waste management that also contribute towards greenhouse gas emissions that I'll discuss alongside. Can we go to the next one, please? Okay, so internationally, when we count the greenhouse gas emissions from different sectors, so from waste sector, we mainly account for methane and nitrous oxide. Although carbon dioxide is also produced from waste sector, but it is considered that's a very negligible amount and the amount that is produced greater is accounted in another sector, which I'll explain later. Can we go to the next one, please? Okay, so we have many different strategies for waste management. We may have landfill the waste. We may reduce. These are different practices. Like if we do not dump the waste in landfill, we can avoid the emissions from the landfill. And then when the waste is produced, then obviously the raw material that was used in its production of a product that ultimately went into the waste, those emissions could be reduced if we recycle or reuse the waste. And similarly, the vehicles that are used for dumping that waste, so we can kind of reduce those emissions as well if we do not require the waste to be dumped to other side. And we could achieve this through the design of products in a way that we do not produce waste. And similarly, we can do so by practicing reuse and recycling of materials. The next one, please. Okay, and okay, so as I mentioned earlier about the reuse and recycle, that is reducing the waste, that is the best approach, because it will not involve all the raw material extraction and all the energy that is being used in the production of that and the transportation. So if we reuse or recycle, and especially if we try to do it at source, then we can reduce lots of emissions that may be produced from it. And if we talk about waste management in Pakistan, so with respect to recycling, mainly it's with the informal sector, although nowadays from the last few years I'm seeing many startups who are working on this recycling project, especially with the plastic as well. Yeah, mainly with the plastic they are doing recycling. So the public-private partnership is a very good approach towards this recycling, to make this recycling practice in the society. Okay, then composting, yes, composting, we had a very good project with the, in Lahore, which was Lahore Compost and was carried out commercially. It ran for many years, but they had to stop unfortunately because of several reasons. Composting can also be practiced at home level as well. So composting is also a good practice in terms of waste minimization and reducing the climatic impacts. Can we go to the next one, please? So because when we carry out composting, then we reduce the emissions that otherwise, if we are using the fertilizer, then the manufacturing of fertilizer also involves lots of emission that could be avoided if we use the compost. And similar, but composting also has its own drawbacks, because composting, there are emissions that are produced from it as well. But if we compare it with the fertilizer, then definitely we can go for less emissions, and we can talk about the carbon credit thing that is currently being discussed a lot. There are many practices for thermal treatment as well that are available. In Pakistan, mainly open burning and incineration is being practiced. So open burning produces lots of toxic gases in the environment, and incineration also produces emissions but incineration could be in Pakistan, most of the incineration that is being carried out is for healthcare or hospital waste. I think a few years back I had read in the newspaper in Karachi they had a plan to develop this incinerator for municipal solid waste as well. But it can be a very good approach if incineration is combined with energy utilization. The heat that is produced because of incineration, that can be made use of. Then we can go for carbon credit for this as well. The next one. So yes, this I have just discussed, that we can have the greenhouse gas savings, as well as we can have the carbon credits if we combine this incineration with we call that the co-combustion, where we make use of energy out of this. Okay, so engineered landfill, there have been planned many engineered landfill in Pakistan, but I don't think we still have any success story here, because the places that they call landfill here are actually not the landfills. The practice generally is that they dump the waste and they cover it with the soil. As I've shown in this picture, the landfill actually has its own structure, which I don't think we have anywhere in Pakistan at the municipal waste management level. So if we have this landfilling, then within landfilling, because it's being planned in Sangjani as well, that's still a debate and it's being controversial at the moment. But if that landfill is being developed, then if we can have a system for methane capture from that landfill, then yes, that's a real good thing. We can go for carbon credits in that case. Okay, can we go to the next one? Yes. Because in landfill, yes, this is also another, because there are many materials, recalcitrant, which can store carbon, and we can use the landfill for carbon storage as well. Okay, if we talk about national greenhouse gas inventory, then there are different sectors in it, and waste is one of the sector within that inventory, which has been divided into different subsectors here. I've just explained a few of the, so you can see here solid waste disposal sites are the one which are accounted in the this national greenhouse gas inventory. And as I was mentioning, that we do not have enough data to put into this, because in inventory we report this as managed disposal sites, and these managed disposal sites are basically the one that we call here as landfills, and that are actually mostly we carry out the open dumping, which is not in the category of the landfill. Okay, so unmanaged disposal sites I've just discussed. Can we go to the next one, please? Okay, open burning, open dumping. This is put here as uncategorized waste disposal site in the inventory. So when we work on inventory, we have the activity data here and emission factor. So activity data, unfortunately in Pakistan, we still do not have the complete this activity data. We based most of our calculations on the estimations. It's been just like 5 or 6 years that now we are coming up with some researches on waste management, and some of the data from different cities is being generated. Before that, we were not even having data on the, even now we are not having any updated database on the waste generated from a particular area, the quantity and the type of the waste that is being produced. So that is, and then the second thing was emission factor. So we are still unable to develop our own emission factor for this this particular sector, because we do not have the specific data that is required. So with my research group, I had tried to work on developing our own emission factor for a particular area. So most of my work at that time was in Rawalpindi. These are some of the calculations that we do for calculating the greenhouse gas emissions. Can we go to the next one? Okay, so these are few limitations that we have in our inventory with respect to the waste sector. We have the methodological limitations. As I mentioned, we are not having any updated database, so we may have certain uncertainty and a greater uncertainty. And the data that we have, there are issues with the validity or reliability of that data as well. Okay, so if we talk about mitigation, then there is a concept of the zero waste economy that is currently being called as circular economy. So there are different approaches for it. Okay, I'm not going to explain each and every approach in detail because of the limitation of the time. So I'll just tell that the concept basically is that the materials that are produced should not be treated as waste. Rather, these should be reused or recycled. So when we have a linear economy that we currently are having in our country, that a material is being produced and then it goes into supply chain and ultimately it is being dumped as a waste. So if we bring the material back into the production site, then that is the best approach towards mitigation. Okay, I've given here the list of few of the institutions that are working on solid waste management specifically. Okay, can we go to the next one? This is a list of few publications that we did from 2018 to 2022. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. So, due to shortage of time, you may ask questions during lunch break.